Hello, heroes of Vaultguard, welcome. Today I would like to make a short video providing feedback to Beta Dwarf regarding Vaultbreakers. In this feedback video I will be talking about the current content in the game, issues with playing as a party, consumable and active item slots, active items as well as cast times in the game. Timestamps are enabled so you can watch the video according to the timestamps, and I hope this is helpful to Beta Dwarf and the rest of you enjoy it. The very first thing I would like to say is that the game currently isn't ready for the mass public and it doesn't have enough content. So I know there are many players that are requesting for the servers to be open 24/7. I am one of those players, but please do not listen to us. Please work on this game more before you make it available to the mass public and keep the servers open 24/7, because the thing about the current gameplay loop is that it isn't sufficient. You'll probably see the first player drop off in the first 2 days. After the first 2 days is when you'll see the first wave of player drop off, and after the first week is when you will have a massive player drop off. There just isn't sufficient gameplay loop yet for the players to be constantly engaged with the game. So please do not keep the servers open 24/7. Do not make it available to the mass public either. This game needs more work, more content, more quality of life features, etc. I started the game by playing with my friend, and this was also where I ran into my first issue. The issue was that when playing in a party, our progression was just massively slow. Like, we were progressing so slowly. Not only did the loot not share between us, because if I picked up the loot he didn't get anything, and he picked up the loot and I didn't get anything, but also we had to do the same quest multiple times. For example, when we had to kill a Lyric, then we had to do it twice, because when we killed a Lyric, only one of us got the item. The other guy, he got nothing. So we had to kill a Lyric twice, and this is a massive problem because eventually we just ended up in a position where we started playing solo. This is not good because games are always more fun when you can play with your friends. A recent example of a game not doing well or losing players when people aren't able to play with their friends is Deadlock. Deadlock had a huge drop off in player base, which hasn't recovered yet, but that's okay since the game is still in development. But they had a huge drop off in player base when they changed how the matchmaking system for parties work. So essentially what they did was, if a very high skilled, high ranked player partied with low skilled, low ranked players, then that party just had an immensely difficult time finding matches even in normal games, and stuff like that just made it very difficult for people to play in a party in Deadlock, and that was when they had a very massive drop off in player numbers, and till today it still hasn't recovered. I'm sure it'll recover once the game releases, but right now it hasn't released so far, so please do keep that in mind, that progression should not be slowed down when playing in a party. One thing you can do for the loot is that when players are playing in a party, then the loot has designations to every player. So let's say it's a trio, and the trio party, every party will have the red player, the blue player, or the green player. You can name them as player 1, player 2, player 3, and in this, when the loot drops and people interact with the loot, then let's say the first 2 bars or so, the first 2-3 rows or so is player 1, then the next 2-3 rows is player 2, the next 2-3 rows is player 3. So player 1 can only take the loot that's designated to player 1. And in the event where they've killed a mob, then they are looting. Player 1 has managed to take everything, but they see other players coming, so they just run away. Then the next party, when they interact with the loot, then player 1's loot is already taken, so player 1 loot is not available to that party anymore. Only player 2 and 3 loot is available. This implementation, I don't know if it's possible. I'm pretty sure when solo and party queues are combined, it's not possible. But if it's possible to do this in a party queue, then I think designating loot to the players would be good so that they don't have to do the same quest over and over again. My friend and I progressed so slow and got so sick of doing the same quest 2 times that we just stopped playing together. And then because we stopped playing together, he also kind of lost interest to play the game because this was his first time playing the game. This was his first time and he wanted to play with me, but we couldn't play together, so eventually after the first 2 days, he just quit. With the addition of active items, we have had the total number of consumable items we can carry minimized down to 1 slot only. Now, while 2 slots seemed sufficient for active items, 1 slot for consumable items definitely did not feel sufficient at all. This also made me use my wards a lot less than I would usually have. Like, I have only 1 slot for a consumable item. Now, what do I put on there? Do I put a shield potion? Do I put healing potion? Do I put bandages? Do I put ward? So it was really a very hard decision to make, and like the cost benefit analysis just made me feel like 1 slot for consumable items is not enough. I feel like we need at least 2, but 1 slot definitely wasn't enough. If you have data to look at, then maybe you would also find that wards was probably used a whole lot less this playtest, but 2 active items does seem sufficient. And I did see a lot of players using the same active items 2 times in both slots, so because the cooldown wasn't shared between the active items, they could essentially use it twice. And what I found was that when you had 2 of the same active items, it was just very powerful. Whether it was 2 blinks or 2 shields, having 2 of anything was just very powerful. I didn't personally use this because I felt like it was an oversight on your part, and it definitely shouldn't be this way. If players, first of all, should not be able to equip the same type of active item in both slots, and even if they do, then the cooldown should be shared. Even if the active item is of different rarity but of the same type, it still shouldn't be possible for players to have the same type of active item. So for the most part, I was just using 2 different active items, but yeah, I don't think having 2 of the same type is good. Regarding the active items, I would say that for the most part, a lot of them felt absolutely horrible to use. Like, I didn't like them at all. The only ones that I actually liked using and felt good to use was the active item that looks like an hourglass and boosts our movement speed, the item that gives us shield, and the blink item. The rest was just trash, like absolute trash, man. For example, I used the fireball active item once, and I didn't ever use it ever again. Too many things in this game has a cost time, and active items is on that list. I couldn't figure out why the fireball item has a cost time. At first I thought it was going to be good because I have 1 extra nuke to use during the fight, but it has a cast time, and if I'm going to be stuck casting a low damage fireball for that long, then I'm screwed during the fight. Like, the other player has to be an absolute noob not to take advantage of me standing in one place. So, too many things have a casting time in this game. I don't think everything needs to have a cast time. Like, for example, I use bandages, now I'm on a cast time. I use healing potion, I'm on a cast time. I use shield potion, I'm on a cast time. Too many things are having a cast time, and this really makes the combat feel horrible. absolutely horrible. For example, you can take a page off Dota 2's book itself. If something isn't broken, you don't need to fix it, right? So how it works in Dota 2 is you can use a healing salve in fight. But the thing is, if you take damage after you've used the healing salve, then you stop healing. The effects of the healing salve is over. So if you use a healing salve mid-fight, then you really have to juke around and abuse the fog of war for as long as possible to heal up. This is something you can implement as well. Not everything needs to have a cast time, because currently the combat feels very stiff. I'll get to that later. But just to stay on the topic of active items, I really do think that you need to work out what has a cast time and what doesn't have a cast time. And it also seems like there's a flat cooldown across the board on all active items. They're pretty much the same, and I don't think that should be the case at all. Like, they should have different cooldowns. Some of them have a longer cooldown, some of them have a shorter cooldown, but on average most active items seem to be around the 40-second mark for cooldowns, and some items I don't think that's needed. For example, the hourglass item that gives us increased movement speed, I don't think that needs a 40-second cooldown. If that has a shorter cooldown, like 15 seconds maybe or something like that, that's more than enough, because that item is an item people are going to use to move around the map faster instead of trying to use it during a fight. During a fight also, it's advantageous, but I'm very certain most people would want to use it to move around the map much faster. So please do look into the cooldowns and how people are actually going to be using it, instead of having like a flat cooldown across the board. You can start testing out casting time just by removing the casting time only on a few items. You can start from there and then you can adjust as you go along. Some of the items which I think you can start with testing out are wards. I don't think wards require a casting time. I think you should just be able to move and place down a ward very quickly on the move and just keep moving, you know. I don't get the idea of having a casting time to place down a ward. I understand that while the player is in the bush, it might be advantageous, but apart from that, like, it's really a hassle that makes moving around the map just all the more difficult. And the second item I would suggest not to have a casting time is healing potion. So like healing potion, you should just be able to click a button and heal immediately. If you feel that this would be too strong in a fight, then what you can do is you can remove the effects of healing potion if the player takes player damage while using a healing potion, or you can reduce its effects by 50%. So if a player takes damage, either the healing is completely removed or the healing effect is reduced by 50%, whichever you choose. But I do think healing potions do not require a casting time. The next item I would suggest is the Fireball active item. This item, I see it very similar to an item called Dagon in Dota 2. That's an active item that also does a burst damage, but the damage is reduced based on the player's magic resistance. So if the more magic resistance the target has, the lesser the damage. I see Fireball similarly, and Dagon doesn't have any casting time, it's instant, and I believe Fireball should be too, because using Fireball when it has a cast time that's so long isn't very fun, nor strategic or advantageous to use. So it just makes the item feel way worse. So do remove the casting time on Fireball. The next item that I would suggest is shield potions. So shield potions, while good, has a cast time, so you really need to be prepared and apply it beforehand before going into a fight. So if you get jumped, you really don't have the option to use a shield potion if it's in your consumable slot. But if you are jumping someone and you hear a fight going on nearby, then you can absolutely pop it with the cast time and then go into the fight. But if you get jumped, shield potions not very helpful, makes the item worse. So I believe removing the cast time from shield potion, you can test it out for like a 1 or 2 playtests and see how it goes. And now the last item I would suggest for you to test regarding cast time is haste potion. So you can remove the casting time completely from haste potion, or you can make the cast time very low. For example, nothing longer than 0.5 seconds. 0.5 seconds absolute max if you do intend to put a cast time on this, but nothing more than that, because otherwise the haste potion, other than moving around the map, like, it's really not very useful, especially in a fight. You don't want to be standing in position for 1 to 2 seconds casting a potion. That's just disadvantageous. It makes the item way worse. So please test out these items regarding casting times and see how it goes, and you can move forward from there. I hope Beta Dwarf found this video useful and that the rest of you enjoyed it as well. My name is Yong Jeonsa and I post Vaultbreakers content. If you like Vaultbreakers, then do subscribe for more. This is Yong Jeonsa signing out. Bye bye.